Ms. Seward, editor-in-chief for the Majesty Magazine, told GB News, "I mean, they were singing Tina Turner's Simply the Best on the way back to school because they didn't want to go back to school, so they thought let TMS all sing and be happy. But the other thing is that William actually took on a lot of his own mother's angst and he shielded Harry from it." Any of these very well-known stories which people that follow these things will remember, like when Diana locked herself in the bathroom and was crying her eyes out, William pushed tissues under the door, and then there's another story which I think Diana herself told on Panorama about when she was very unhappy. William would go and buy her chocolates and she would tell William about her unhappiness, so this young man, he was 14 or something at the time, probably less, 13, 14, was taking on his mother's unhappiness, and he shielded Harry from all that. Harry, I don't think, knew what was going on at all. He was too young, so not only did William protect Harry, but he took a lot of it on board himself, sure, and as you rightly point out there within the podcast. He added that sometimes the police officer assigned with them as a bodyguard would join in on the singing as well. Prince William said, "You'd be singing, listening to the music right the way up to the gates of school where they dropped you off, and that's when reality kind of sunk in. You really were going back to school, because before that you're lost in song. You want to play it again just to keep that family moment going. And when I listen to it now, it takes me back to those car rides and brings me back lots of memories of my mother." Prince William recorded a 38-minute podcast at his grandmother TM's estate at Sandringham in Norfolk, who walked past St Mary Magdalene Church, and concluded the podcast at his own home in Norfolk, home of Anmer Hall, which he shares with his wife Kate, Duchess of Cambridge, and their 3 children. Prince William lifts lid on massive fight between George and Charlotte. Spotlight. The podcast is a part of Apple Fitness Plus, a subscription for Apple Watch users to enjoy the tête while walking. It is available on Apple Music One, Apple Music's global radio station, for a wide audience without any subscription. The famous podcast Time to Walk has featured famous guests in its previous seasons: Anthony Joshua, Cynthia Erivo, Joan Benoit Samuelson, Marsai Martin, Naomi Campbell, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and many more. Duke of Sussex has progressively been stripped of his royal titles and roles since he and Meghan Markle stepped back as senior royals last January. These included several honorary military roles such as Captain General of the Royal Marines and Commodore-in-Chief, small ships and diving in the Royal Navy. Now, in the latest blow to the Afghan veteran TMS standing within the firm, he could lose another role to Lady Louise after she turned 18 yesterday. Until turning an adult, the teenager has kept a largely private role. But she must now decide whether she wants to continue this or begin taking up increasing amounts of public duties as a member of the royal family. Lady Louise, who has been dubbed the Royal Family TMS secret weapon after charming viewers during a documentary on Prince Philip TMS life, has yet to publicly announce her decision. But should she decide to follow in the footsteps of her grandmother the Queen, she would likely be offered the role of Counselor of State. This is understood to be one of the last remaining duties that Harry, 37, will be stripped of. Therefore, Lady Louise could be only days away from replacing her older cousin in the role. This would allow her to stand in for the Queen should the monarch not be able to attend a public engagement. The daughter of Prince Edward and Sophie is 16th in line to the throne. An insider has said that regardless of her decision, the teenager is likely to continue studying for her A-levels before going on to university. This would limit the number of engagements she would be able to undertake. But with the royal family short of working members after losing the Duke and Duchess of Sussex followed by Prince Andrew, she would be a welcome addition. The Queen is reportedly knackered and has been told by doctors to carry out light duties after she covered 19 occasions in October. Speaking to the Sunday Times last year, Sophie Wessex explained how she and her husband Prince Andrew have tried to give Louise a normal upbringing. She said, "She TMS working hard and will do A-levels. I hope she goes to university. I wouldn't TMT force her, but if she wants to. She TMS quite clever. We try to bring them up with the understanding that they are very likely to have to work for a living. Hence we made the decision not to use HRH titles." They have them and can decide to use them from 18, but it TMS highly unlikely. 2019, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle decided to ignore past royal traditions and refused to release the names of their son Archie Harrison's godparents. A royal expert has stated this marked the shift in public perception, as people questioned the public's right to know the moral compass of those close to the line of succession. Whilst the couple's eldest child was christened in Windsor, it is unsure if their baby daughter, Lilibet Diana, has been christened yet or if they will return to the UK for the service. Speaking on the Daily Mirror's podcast Pod Save the Queen, royal editor Russell Myers said, "Hark back to the time when it became such an issue that Harry and Meghan decided not to release the names of the godparents, and again, it was a big debate about whether it mattered or it didn't. Well, I think that was the start of the beginning of the end really with the public perception. If you are taking all the trappings of royal life, do you necessarily have to follow what has happened before you, in terms of keeping up with tradition and having pictures of the christening, publicizing who the godparents are? Should people know who are the godparents and the moral compass of someone who is in line to the throne? I would argue yes, I think that is quite interesting, but they obviously saw it a different way." Archie Harrison's christening took place in the private chapel at Windsor Castle on July 6, 2019. The couple had welcomed their first child on May 6 at the Portland Hospital in London, a year on from their 2018 royal wedding. In contrast to previous royal christenings, no members of the press were allowed to capture images of the royal family entering the chapel. Whilst all christenings are private and are not live-streamed to the public, photographers are usually permitted to stand outside the chapel to capture images before and after the service. Instead, the Sussexes shared 2 photographs that were taken by photographer Chris Allerton. In a statement, they said, "The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are overjoyed to share the happiness of this day, and would like to thank everyone around the world for their ongoing support," reads a statement released in honor of the day. They feel so fortunate to have enjoyed this special moment with family and Archie TM's godparents. It is believed that only 25 guests attended the private ceremony, with the Queen absent due to prior commitments. Don't miss. In order to protect their friends' privacy, the couple refused to release the names of those they had selected to be godparents. This marked a change in approach to the Cambridges, who had released the names of their children's godparents and other details of the service. Aside from these differences, Archie Harrison wore the same christening gown that his cousins had worn, and was christened in the lily font, a silver gilt bowl that has been used for every royal baby since Princess Victoria in 1841. Prince Harry and Meghan currently reside in Montecito in California with their 2 children. In 1987, Prince Edward staged a disastrous TV show called It TMS, a royal knockout, which saw members of the royal family compete alongside celebrities from the world of sport, music and TV in a series of wacky challenges and events. Prince Andrew, Princess Anne, Sarah Ferguson and Edward himself put on pantomime Elizabethan costumes, joined by, among others, John Travolta, Cliff Richard, Sheena Easton, and Gary Lineker. The show was seen almost universally as a public relations disaster, but the Earl of Wessex believed otherwise. That same autumn, a book about the TV show was published with an introduction by the Prince, who described it as the event of the year. In 2019, Channel 5 documentary Paxman on the Queen TMS children, singer and actress Toya Wilcox, who helped the Prince with the organization of the show, suggested that Edward broke all protocol with the one-off extravaganza. Both the Queen and Prince Philip were dismayed by Edward TM's unconventional ways to raise money and, along with Prince Charles and Princess Diana, decided not to participate. However, despite the criticism, Ms. Wilcox noted the event was inevitable as it symbolized the beginning of a modern monarchy. According to The Star, it wasn't TMT, the TV program itself, that was disastrous, but Prince Edward TM's reaction when the event concluded. "Accepting the event was pilloried," she said. "I believe, for 1 second in time, it turned, there was a tipping point. Prince Edward didn't want the press milling around, and he went into the press tent and just said, 'No, you guys are staying here.' The whole atmosphere just flipped. In an episode of Channel 5's Now That's Embarrassing, the 80s, Ms. Wilcox recalled how the assembled journalists responded with nervous laughter when he asked what they thought of the show after the event, and Prince Edward stormed out of the press conference, sarcastically thanking the journalists for their enthusiasm. Ms. Wilcox said, "They were hot, they were hungry, and they had not seen anything in the flesh, so they didn't give him any reaction. They just dissed him and he lost his temper. That is the moment that is remembered of the whole event." Presenter and broadcaster Vanessa Feltz noted, he, Edward, wanted the press to big him up and tell him how fabulous it had been, but it hadn't been fabulous. It had been embarrassing, it had been a monstrous carbuncle on the entire history of the royal family. Despite the flop, Prince Edward remained very much loved by his parents. He and his wife, Sophie, Countess of Wessex, are believed to be among the favourite guests hosted every year by the Queen at Balmoral Castle. Sophie, Prince Edward, and their two children Lady Louise Windsor, and James, Viscount Severn, are expected to visit the Queen in Scotland in the coming weeks. In an interview with the Telegraph magazine, the Countess of Wessex even confessed her family has sometimes spent more time holidaying at Balmoral and Sandringham than other royal relatives. She said, "The poor Queen has had to put up with us staying on much longer than anybody else in Scotland and Norfolk." James and Louise are also believed to be fond of their time in Scotland with the Queen. According to a royal insider, the young royals relish their time and activities there. The source told The Sun, "The Queen loves the fact that Louise and James relish their time at Balmoral, and she has become particularly close to Louise, who seems to have become her favourite grandchild, closely followed by James." Louise also endeared herself to everyone by looking after William and Kate TM's children when they were up here. Louise loves drawing and sketching and was very patiently trying to get Charlotte to do pictures of rabbits and deer. Given Louise has obvious artistic skills, the source added the Queen granted a major honour to her youngest granddaughter.